13 December 1942. I slept badly last night. When Grother wants to wake me, I'm already awake. I'm not at peace within myself, and I can't explain it. I have a gnawing sensation in my stomach, like an anthill. The cold outside is good for me. The wind suddenly carries sounds to us of a sort we've not heard before. They are a bit like trumpet blast, repeated at various distances. Later, we hear the noise of powerful engines approaching through the night from the direction of Scheer. The trumpet sounds are new, and we can't make head nor tail of them. When I meet up with Meinhardt, he says that he has noticed searchlights being turned on over there now and then. Looks like he is assembling troops over there, he says to himself, and then adds, Ivan definitely is up to something, if only we knew what. The air around us becomes electric. The entire sector is now awake. Soldiers are emerging from the trenches and are walking nervously back and forth. Everyone is looking towards the front, but it is still too dark to make anything out. When I go to wake Weichert at 5 o'clock, he is already standing in front of the bunker gazing towards Scheer. The nervous feeling in my stomach is now stronger. I remember that the same feeling of unease would also come to me at home most often when I was about to start an important sports event. Here, however, it is much stronger. It is a concentrated excitement, brought about by the knowledge that something threatening is approaching and we don't know what it is. A stifling situation, but we have to wait. Wait until the gray of the morning. Finally, in the frosty morning air, in the east, there's a narrow strip of light announcing the dawn of a new day. Grommel is still a bit groggy and is searching for words to explain a bad dream he had, but what he says is lost in the infernal racket which is going on. It comes at us with such a force that there must be 1,000 devils in the air, and the earth around us is being consumed like a boiling hell. Before we rush back into the bunker, Dilke, who is standing guard outside, comes dashing over and falls to the ground right in front of us. We look at each other with disturbed white faces. Nobody says a word, but fear is obvious in every wrinkle of our skin. Our eyes gleam feverishly. Hell is fuming. Fire and glowing steel fall from the sky all around us. If we didn't know that the devastating shell fire was coming from the Soviets, we could be forgiven for thinking that here, on 13 December, the end of the world had begun. I can't stand it in the bunker anymore. I want to see this hell in which we will all perish. When I raise my head just a little above the edge of the bunker, I am paralyzed with fear. The surface of the ground is dancing all the way up to the hillock in a hellish turmoil. Not a single square foot seems to be still. Fountains of earth mixed with cold snow and glowing splinters of metal churn over the area, being peppered with shell fragments. Nobody, but nobody, could take even a couple of steps without being caught up in this cauldron. The bursting thunderous noise and the screaming in the air are so loud that we can no longer make ourselves heard. On top of our bunker, there are already a number of shallow craters caused by mortar fire, Stalin organ, and light infantry weapons. But so far, the roof, which we've only reinforced 2 days ago, is held up. The inferno ebbs somewhat after about half an hour, but it seems to us like an eternity. The communication trench and our position have been almost filled. It's a wonder we're still alive. What does the enemy have in mind now? We know that this crazy shelling can only be preparatory to an attack, but the enemy is still hidden by the morning mist. Then Dilke yells hysterically, "Tanks are coming, and great masses, swarms of them." His last words are drowned out by the noise of the explosions from the shells the tanks are firing at us. Then I see them too. First, it's like a wall of fire advancing on us. Then a horde of brown beetles slowly approaches across the white steppe. A tank attack. Weichert hurriedly counts 50, but there must be more. So this is what the Soviets have prepared, a colossal tank attack against our desolate, poorly equipped outpost here, which has been holding him back and has inflicted far too many losses on him for far too long. Belching a threatening ripple of fire, the T-34s advance parallel with the railway line towards the village. Within the next quarter of an hour, they will have reached it. and we'll be able to roll up or cut off our position from the rear. We know that our time here is run out, and at the time of terror without end, the terrible end has come. The question is there still a chance for us to escape this fate? We are standing in the protection of the bunker and are staring with sweaty faces now at the oncoming tanks, now at the fiery explosions on the churned-up field up toward the safety of the hillock. A number of men near the hillock are now jumping out of their trenches and running up towards its protection. They want to reach the village before the tanks do, so that they can escape over the frozen river Don. The sappers have also left their positions and are running towards the hillock. More and more men do likewise. They are running through a rain of shellfire and splinters. The further they have to run, the less chance they have of making it alive. The ground in between is littered with weapons, coats, weapons, and other items, discarded so that the men can run faster. Many of them are struck down and remain lying on the ground. Others manage to get up again and run on, bleeding. What should we do? Brommel and Wilke run like caged animals into and out of the bunker. Beichert ducks down beside me, ready to run, but he is still not decided. He points at two figures and jumping out of the trench and now bounding through the deadly fire towards safety. I recognize the Talvarius and also Zeidel, who has a bandage around his head. Zeidel falls but springs up again and carries on. Wilke excitedly indicates to us that the first tanks have already reached the village. What should we do? Obviously, we can't stay here in the bunker. That means death or imprisonment. To be taken prisoner by the Soviets? That I would never live through. Wilke has already taken off his webbing and is running into the seething cauldron. I can see him throwing away his heavy overcoat as he runs along. Then I lift Beichert and Grommel up over the edge of the trench. They have already stripped off all unnecessary baggage and are running for their lives. Now it's my turn. Am I the last one? No, I can still see a couple of men waiting, but what for? There are but two possibilities, run or stay. It calls for just as much daring to stay in the bunker and wait for the Soviets as it does to run through the explosions. What a perfect soldier I am. Instead of freeing myself of all extraneous weight, I want to take along my belt and all my equipment. As I run, I notice very quickly that I'm not getting away fast enough. So as I run, I tear off my overcoat and loosen my belt. The whole lot falls to the ground, and I keep only my pistol in my hand. I dash over to the shell craters and stumble over the items which the fleeing soldiers have discarded. All around me, grenades and shells are bursting. It is a run for life or death. Many have not made it to the hillock. They are lying silently or moaning on the ground. Others are calling for help. How can I help them? I could be lying there beside them any moment. The fear of death or a serious injury blanks out every other thought, and I see only the chance of saving my own skin. As I reach the hillock and disappear behind it, coughing and drenched in sweat, I have long since lost sight of my friends. I stumble over a dead body and fall in the snow, which here is still white and almost virgin. The body I have just stumbled over is that of Unteroffizier Schwarz, lying in a pool of blood from several wounds. Judging from the color in his face, he can only recently have died. Then I see a new danger in front of me. Several T-34s have turned in front of the village and are now blocking the path of the escaping soldiers. They are driving several men before them, and the latter are running for their lives, trying to escape by zigzagging like rabbits. But the tanks are firing with their machine guns. Some of the men fall and are ground up by the tank tracks. I have to get through. It hammers away in my head. I have to stay in the blind spot of the tank. In spite of this, the bullets spray around my head. And then I sense a hit against the left side of my chest. Am I wounded? I don't feel anything, which slows me down or weakens me, so I continue in my headlong rush. Suddenly, Wilke is beside me. He buckles at the knees and coughs. I can't go on, it's murderous. I grab him by the arm and pull him up, but after a couple of paces, his legs give out again. Has he been hit? Horrified, I see a T-34 tank bearing down on us. With my last ounce of strength, I jump up, but Wilke can no longer get up. The tank track is already over his body, and his terrified yell is swallowed up by the gunfire of the T-34. It never noticed the human being it just ran over. The tank is now firing at individual soldiers. Nothing restrains me anymore. I run and run until my lungs wheeze like a pair of old bellows. Finally, I reach the railings and vault over them. I fall down on some hard ground on the other side. For a moment, I remain lying there. The sweat is running down my forehead into my eyes. When I wipe my forehead with the back of my hand, it is bloody, but it is only a small graze from falling on a stone. Then I notice a ruined hut. That would give me some cover. I must get over there, and with a couple of strides, I make it. The broken-down door lies on the floor. Too late do I discover that lurking behind the remains of the wall is a T-34, its turret hatch open. A thunderous shot almost burst my eardrums. Suddenly, a Soviet soldier jumps over the remains of the wall into the house and becomes glued to the spot. We are both surprised and stare at each other. He is unarmed, and I am holding my pistol in my hand, aimed at him. The Russian is young, just like me, and is staring with concern at my pistol. If he attacks me, I will shoot, but he doesn't move. He just stands there and lets his hands fall to his sides. Slowly, I move backwards until my back hits a beam. Then I turn and ride away to the protection of some bushes close to the riverbank. There I meet up with a group of soldiers who, like me, are completely exhausted and who, after a short pause to catch their breath, throw themselves on the snow-covered ice of the dawn. Under the terrifying machine gun and heavy fire from the many tanks which have assembled at the riverbank, they are trying to make it across the river to safety of the other side, joining the ranks of all the other German soldiers who, in a state of sheer panic, are now engaged in a life-or-death struggle. In order to avoid falling into the hands of a merciless enemy, they choose to take the lesser risk of running over the deadly ice, which minutes earlier stretched away peacefully. I also clutch at this straw of hope and race off. The ice is too thin for the tanks, which therefore line themselves up on the high ground along the banks and fire at us as if at a shooting range. The shells explode without let-up. Men are falling onto the snow left and right. The white covering is now coloring itself blood red. The dead are lying in heaps, and the wounded are groaning and calling for help. In many places, the ice is cracked open from the shell fire, and fountains of water are erupting high into the air. Many of the bodies lying on the snow disappear in the gurgling water as the ice breaks up. I run, stumbling over dead and wounded, hearing only explosions, and aware that the snow is becoming stained red with blood. Then finally, I reach the safety of the other bank.